Kieron is alone. It's time for him to make a start on his future. He heads south and finds himself in Cape Town and at the docks waiting for a ship. Where will it take him?
Chapter 19. A Close Call. It was early December 1969 when I browsed through the Times of Zambia newspaper and spotted an advertisement. A South African company was looking for a veterinary representative to sell their wares to farmers. I knew about farms. I'd administered all sorts of medicines to cows, and what I knew about growing crops was, well, enough, I guess. I was there, man. So I applied but got no reply. I needed a break. Needs must. That's what they say, is it not? I had this cunning little plan rattling around in my befuddled brain, so I did a bad thing. I asked a school friend in Johannesburg to send me a telegram inviting me for an interview to this job. Hate me. Call me a cad. Call me Machiavellian. The telegram did its magic, and my parents were impressed enough to give me a bus ticket and enough cash for the trip to Johannesburg. Grip in hand, I was dropped off by Betty at the Elephant's Head coach terminal in Broken Hill. I watched her turn the corner of D.H. Patel's department store. When I was certain she'd gone, I went into Leopold Walford Travel Agency and cashed the ticket in. I crossed the road and set a hurried pace for the open road south. As an experienced hitchhiker, I had no trouble getting a lift and soon found my way to Johannesburg. In an attempt to fulfill some sort of obligation, I went to see the company I had written to and even got an interview. The result was predictable. Rejected, dejected but faintly excited, I stood outside the building. Which way should I go, north or south? Another predictable result, and soon I was standing by the roadside with my thumb pointing south towards Cape Town. 5 days I waited, sleeping under trees, in culverts, anywhere. Nobody was willing to give me a lift, so I staggered back to Johannesburg, had a haircut, and went to Jan Smuts Airport. In those days, a one-way ticket to Cape Town was 35 rand. Apart from my grip, I had a small suitcase which carried a few clothes and some traveller's checks. I balanced the equation and cashed all my checks, peeled off 50 rand, stuffed the rest back in my suitcase, went to the ticket counter and bought a one-way ticket to Cape Town. I turned around. My suitcase had vanished. I vividly remember a hot flush of alarm clamping me like I'd been squeezed in a vice. The upshot of the whole process was me having to cash in my ticket and lose 10%. This boy is going nowhere, I thought as my thumb again pointed south. At least I had less luggage and got a lift all the way to Cape Town. The suburb of Clifton, nestled snugly below Table Mountain, speckled the hillside with Mediterranean-style apartments overlooking the famous first, second and third beach. The cold Atlantic Ocean stretched away into even colder horizons, but I was bloody hot and pissed off with looking for Helga's apartment. As I said, I'd gleaned her address from the Johannesburg hotel she'd worked at, but it was in the stolen suitcase. I was sure her place was somewhere near Third Beach. It was pure luck that I saw her standing at the foot of a mind-boggling set of concrete steps that had hernia written all over them. She seemed to be arguing with a fellow on Latin descent. When she saw me, she ordered him away on the spot. I had a place to stay for a while and spent most of my time trying to get a job on a ship. 3 weeks I lasted before Helga gave me my marching orders. I was back on the streets and contemplating Plan B, which didn't exist. I was so broke that the time had come for me to phone Ted and beg forgiveness. The camp adjutant answered the phone, and no amount of persuasion would get Ted to speak to me. I was told to sort out my own self-inflicted problems. After all, what was all my character-building training for? I felt rightfully disowned. I walked the Cape Town docks. I would take any job going, and one day spotted a small ship berthed. There was a nice man emptying a bucket of shit over the side. He glared darkly at me. "What do you want?" he asked in a guttural accent. I could not believe how nice people could be. "I need work," I replied. "I'm trying to get to England." "England! Come aboard," he said with a smile. "We lost Charlie yesterday, so we got a plenty room for healthy boy like you." Things were looking up, I thought, as I was led into a dark cabin. There, perched at a rickety table, sat the proverbial Captain Blackbeard. But I did have a sense of foreboding as the oily crew members gathered. They explained how it would work. The ship was a lugger, a trading boat, and would be coast-hopping along the west coast of Africa. It would take up to 6 months to get to England. I could hear the sabres rattling and backed away as I realized what rhymes with lugger. The engines were throbbing, and I could hear all the goings-on of a ship departing. I thanked Christ I was fit enough to jump the gradually increasing gap between ship and dock to make my escape. That very day, I met a lovely Madala who looked after the overnight stores waiting for shipment. Madala is an African term used to describe a man with wisdom and age. He fed and housed me in a wooden crate with straw as bedding for 3 days while I looked for the opportunity I needed. One morning, the whole dockside became overshadowed by the biggest ship I had ever seen. Painted white and looking like a futuristic spacecraft, it stretched for what seemed miles. Twin yellow funnels announced its origin, P and O, the SS Canberra. On its stern, the word Southampton prompted me to get excited. Before long, I was up the gangplank and searching for a snug place to hide. On one of the decks, I noticed a room distinctly unlike a cabin. It had rows of laundry piled on shelves. I ducked in and had a good look around. In the corner was a small opening with an ironing board and other laundry stuff. There was just enough room for a 6-foot 19-year-old. Elated with my find, I sneaked out again. I had to get my bag and pass through the main concourse with its spiral staircase. By chance, I overheard part of a conversation between a crew member and a passenger. "When we get to Australia." Shit, that was close. I raced off the ship, back to the comfort of my wooden crate to lick my wounds and consider Plan D.